Uh, Dreboo Camp on here with another video. Okay, with another video. Get it. Back in the establishment. Let's give it. Birdman brother. Terrance Gangsta ways. Tell his life story. Full interview by DJ Vlad TV. Like and subscribe my channel. Yeah, keep supporting me. Keep joining them around, man. We gonna keep on going. Let's get it, man. Let's get it.
All right, here we go. We have Terrance Gangster Williams, the half-brother of Birdman, who just got out of prison after serving a lot of time. Welcome to Vlad TV.
Thanks for having me, man.
Well, you have a very interesting story. This is our first time actually sitting down. So to kind of give a little bit of the backstory, Birdman and you have the same father, right?
Right.
And from what I understand, Birdman's mother passed away when he was 5 years old.
Right. Correct.
And he went to Canada to live with his uncle for a little while and then ended up in foster care back in New Orleans. And in Canada to live with his uncle for a little while and then
Canada?
Right. Correct.
And he went to Canada to live with his uncle for a little while and then ended up in foster care back in New Orleans. And at that point, your dad went and actually got him and the siblings and brought him into the family.
Right.
So when do you first remember Birdman actually coming in?
I was like, I was maybe like in elementary school somewhere. When he came in, I was like, man, what's going on? You know, who is this? You know, because as youngsters, you be territorial. And when some new people come around, now you like, well, where he gonna sleep at? What's going on with this person? So yeah, I was like in elementary school somewhere.
Okay, and when Baby and his siblings came in, how many kids were in the family at that point?
Well, see, my father had like about 25 children, so from different people. So, but like Baby and I, we didn't always stayed in the same household because my whole life, like from young, I was like in juvenile prison and to state prison. So my father had like about 25 children, so from
And when Baby and his siblings came in, how many
so yeah, I was like,
My boy got diamonds still in his grills.
it's like, I was like in elementary school somewhere. Around now, you like, well, where he gonna sleep at? What's going on with this person? So yeah, I was like, I was like in elementary school somewhere.
Okay, and
But where he gonna sleep at? What's going on with this person? Because as youngsters, you be territorial. And when some new people come around,
Oh.
I was like, I was maybe like in elementary school somewhere.
5 years old.
Right. Correct.
And he went to Canada to live with his uncle for a little while and then ended up in foster care back in New Orleans. And at that point, your dad went and actually got him and the siblings and brought him into the family.
Right.
So when do you first remember Birdman actually coming in?
I was like, I was maybe like in elementary school somewhere. When he came in, I was like, man, what's going on? Who is this? Because as youngsters, you be territorial. And when some new people come around, now you like, well, where he gonna sleep at? What's going on with this person? So yeah, I was like, I was like in elementary school somewhere.
Okay, and when Baby and his siblings came in, how many kids were in the family at that point?
Well, see, my father had like about 25 children, you know, so from different people. So, but like, baby and I, we didn't always stayed in the same household because my whole life, like from young, I was like in juvenile prison and to state prison. So I've always been in prison.
Okay. And I mean, from what I understand, Birdman and your brother Eldrick Wise started to become really close,
Right, real close. Yeah,
and they started hustling together and starting to get in trouble.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, when you saw that happening, what did you think?
I wanted that. You know, as a youngster, you see your siblings getting money, dressing fly, you know, people respecting them, the girls calling all the time, and you know, you be like, I want that. So, you know, I was like, I want to get a part of this action. And I started at a young age too in the streets.
Okay, what age did you start at?
I would say I was 10 years old when I first, 9 years old when I first went to juvenile. Well, the police picked me up at 9 years old. About, I would say when I was 11 years old, that's when I started selling marijuana. And I was stealing cars, sleeping out in cars then.
Okay, and Baby was doing about the same thing because in 1987, when he was 18, him and your brother, Eldrick Wise, got arrested for drug possession and sentenced to 3 years.
Right?
Okay, when you saw your brother get arrested, well, both your brothers get arrested, what did you think?
I thought that was like, you know, that was the thing back then, because, you know, in the hood, you get killed or going to prison. So my thing was, okay, my time to step up. And, you know, I had the little, back there, we go buy a weed for like $20 and sell a little $2 weeds. Like I thought I was doing something. Have $20, $30 worth of ones in my pocket like I was rich.
Okay, so you get busted for weed, but during that time, the real money was in heroin and was crack?
Crack,
hitting New
yeah,
Orleans at that
crack,
time? And was
yeah,
crack,
crack was big,
hitting New Orleans
yeah.
at that time?
Yeah, crack, yeah.
Okay, so at what age did you start dabbling in that?
Oh, I was at,
Why check? Why TJ acting like a computer, bro? What age do you dabbling at? What age do you start dabbling at, bro? Like, damn, bro.
13, at 13, 12, 13, one up in there. I got into the crack, selling crack. About 1992, I was first introduced to selling heroin in 1992.
Okay, well, going from weed to crack is a much different game. Weed is relatively mellow. People aren't trying to kill you or rob you. But when you get into crack and then heroin, that's when you really get a lot more serious. That's when the junkies, you know, will do anything for a hit. And then you're making a lot more money, so people are out to get you as well.
Correct. That's correct.
So what started to happen as you started to switch over to the new drugs?
Well, actually, I wasn't the first one. My best friend Mosquito, he one of the original HotBoys. He the first one that started the crack move because I was still selling weed, but we were on the same set. And one day I come around the corner and this guy was choking him. And I was like, what's going on? So the guy was trying to take the crack from him. And I had my little 22 on me at the time. That was my first time putting out my gun and engaging in violent behind that crack you talking about.
Okay, what happened in that situation?
Well, the guy was choking my best friend, trying to take the crack from him. And I pulled out my little 22, shot it in the air, and that's what got both of them attention. And that freed up my best friend. So we just both ran off.
Okay, but in that same year, you actually got shot in the foot?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That was in 91.
Bro, like, how do you know this? This nigga, bro, how did this nigga know this?
When I got shot in the foot. I had broke out of juvenile jail and I was in a project and this guy came and bought some 7 grams of cocaine. And he was with a woman and I seen he had a gun in his hand and me, young, tried to rob him out of his gun because one of my buddies already had him robbed him out of the coke. We waited till he bought the drugs from one drug dealer and one of the guys in my project robbed him for the drugs, and I was like, man, let's take his gun. And at this time, he just started shooting, and he shot me in the foot.
Okay, and that was the first time you got shot.
Right.
So what changed in you after you got shot the first time?
I knew that it was a real world. It was like, kill or be killed, shoot first, ask question later.
Well, that same year, 1991, your brother Eldrick Wise got killed.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the first, person in your immediate family to get killed like that?
91. Yeah, that was the first person I was close to, yeah.
Okay. And from what I understand, that's still an unsolved murder.
Right.
So how did you feel that your older brother just got murdered and no one knows who it is?
Well, back then when I was young, I wanted to know, and back then you always would wait for the police or somebody to come and say, hey, we found this out, we found that out. But as I've gotten older and started being into the street life, I was like, I wanted to know myself so I can, get some get back. Avenge his death.
Did you ever find out who did it?
No.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Okay. So now you're really fully in the game. You've gotten shot once. And over the years, you've gotten shot, was it 6 times?
I got shot 94 twice. Like, I got hit twice in 94. One. And in 96, I was hit twice. Yeah.
Well, you're now fully in the drug game, but your brother is starting to launch Cash Money Records.
Right.
And in 1992, they put out their first project, Kilo G, The Sleepwalker. Now, were you at all involved in this label early on, or that's just your brother's thing?
That was their thing. I didn't see no money in that stuff back then. They was like, man, I'm telling you, come on, man, get out of here with that, Because, early when you first start a business, you don't see no profit or you don't see nothing. You're going to take a lot of losses before you get gain. And, the street money that's where the money at the time. So I'm like, man, get on with that. I don't want to hear nothing about that.
Okay, but your brother stuck with it.
Yeah. It was Slim that actually was the main one that stuck with it.
Okay, how close were you with Slim?
Back then or now?
Back then.
About that.
Okay, but your brother stuck with it.
Yeah. It was Slim that actually was the main one that stuck with it.
Okay, how close were you with Slim?
Back then or now?
Back then.
We were okay, like, man, get on with that. I don't want to hear nothing about that.
Okay, but your brother stuck with it.
Yeah. It was Slim that actually was the main one that stuck with it.
Okay, how close were you with Slim?
Back then or now?
Back then.
We were okay, like any other sibling, like, hey, how you doing? What's up? You all right? But Slim was more like the one to always get out the streets. Ain't nobody want to hear that type of stuff. So, when you're young and you getting a little hood fame, I be ducking. I used to try to duck Slim back then because Slim always be one, go to school and, preach the good boy talk. And I was already hood, rich and famous.
Well, that next year.
These mushrooms make you feel better. They increase focus and energy while keeping you calm and stress-free. Plus, they cut down on bloat.
In 1993, Cash Money puts out UNLV, 6th and Barone. And that was a big project. I felt like that was like the next step up for Cash Money.
Uh-huh.
Were you a little more interested by that time, or you were still in the streets and didn't care?
Still in the streets. Still in the streets, man. Yeah. I mean, like I would go to concerts or, listen to it, but man, the drug money was the way to go back then. It was fast money.
Well, that same year, 1993, you pled guilty to attempted murder?
19, yeah.
Okay, tell me about that situation.
Back then it was, we have wards, and it was this high school dance, Corn High School, and my project, the third ward, the Magnolia Project, we would go to the dance, and then you had the 10th ward, the St. Thomas Project would go to the high school dance. And from there, you know, youngsters, how it escalates to the dance, fighting, then after the dance is shooting. Well, I was in prison, I was in jail when the Magnolia and the St. Thomas got into this beef. But for some reason, when I come home, my name.
I'm watching the interview just like y'all react to this, react to the points of views, just like y'all is, man. Like y'all like to subscribe to this video, man. This shit is epic.
Name is on the front, and I was hanging around this club, standing up on the corner, just hanging out, and a guy come to me and said, "Hey man, the guy across the street looking at you, he said he about to shoot you. He told everybody to get out the way." And when I looked over to my right, he's kneeling down with his chrome revolver in his hand. And then I looked to my left, there's no cars, nobody, and I realized nobody's standing there with me. And I was like, man. So this other guy out the Melpomene Project come to me, he had a tank top, a nylon tank top that you could see through. And he was like, man, I got your back. He had a 45 in the lower of his back. And then he walks over and go across the street to the club. So I was like, well, how you got my back and you done walked off? At this time now, I don't have a gun on me because I don't know this guy that's talking about shooting me. So I walk across the street and I look in the club. It's a little small hole in the wall, one way in, one way out. So I was like, maybe I can go in here and hang out. But I was like, no, because if he a gangster like I think he is, he gonna come in here shooting. And back then they didn't have police around there. So one of my guys out the project, we had what you call a rock rental, crack car. Like you pay the junkies to use their car. And I had the guy to go get the car, and I jumped in the car, and the guy didn't shoot or nothing. He let me leave. So I raced home, go get got this 9mm Ruger, and I went back around the club. Now, as we get back around the club, I'm in the back seat, and I see him heading to his car. So I see these females coming too. So back then it was like a show-off thing too. Like you wanted people to see you do your murder or your shooting, what have you. So I was about to jump out, but then I got a little nervous because I was like, well, maybe if I jump out and shoot him now, the guy that's with him might have a gun and might shoot me. So I waited, and then he turned around and he walks across the street and started talking to this guy out the Melpomene Project. So I switched sides in the car. I got on the back driver's side and the passenger window. I mean, yeah, the back seat driver's side window. And as we pulled up to the corner, he's saying, "Oh man, I don't have beef with you. I have beef with Lil Gangsta." And when I heard my name come out of his mouth, I just stuck the gun out the window and hit him like 10 times. He ran and fell, and we pulled off. I don't know how the police knew that it was me or how my name come up, but I wound up getting arrested for it. And well, actually, I got to back up. They had made us take a releasement from juvenile prison at this time. So while I was out
Oh, that first body here caught. Allegedly. Damn, they just came out the window and stuck him. Crazy.
I had shot the guy, and when my probation officer called me to come visit him one day, he told me they made us take a release me, so I had to go back to do my juvenile time. And while I was doing my juvenile time, they came and arrested me for a homicide. So when they arrested me for the homicide, the homicide detective come back and say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get you for shooting the guy." I was like, "I didn't know about that." So that's how I wound up. Well, actually, while we was in court, the guy came to court, and we had a little argument in court, and they rebooked us for public intimidation for threatening witness. And while we waiting for trial, he go and rob a bank, and he was caught with a mask and a gun. So now what the DA do, because at the time I got a co-defendant that's charged with attempt murder, then I have a co-defendant that is charged with a homicide. So by me not wanting to snitch on my co-defendant for the homicide, they offer my co-defendant for the attempt murder probation. And back then, when you in Orleans Parish, when you plead guilty, right away, they're going to give you a sentence or announce it that same day. So they told my co-defendant to get on the stand and tell him what happened. So I was like, oh man, he about to snitch on me. So he got up on the stand and he gave his name. He told the people he did everything. And like about 2-3 weeks later, they came and offered me probation. So I copped out to the probation because how juvenile go, because I still had juvenile life at the time and I still was considered a juvenile. And had I beat the charge, I would have had to go back to do my juvenile time. But by me pleading out and getting probation, I'm considered an adult now, so I don't have to go back to juvenile. So I went on and plead guilty to take the probation, so I didn't have to go back and do the juvenile time.
I mean, that's a hell of a deal to get probation for shooting someone 10 times.
Well, actually, he was hit 14 times. I just hit him 10.
Oh, there's 2 shooters.
Right.
Okay.
The first shooter, the one he pled guilty to.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, still a hell of a deal.
Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, you can say so. I mean, he hadn't went to jail for trying to rob a bank, so they should have dropped the charges.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
Okay. So you get through that whole situation. And was your name Gangster at that point?
Yeah, I was Lil Gangsta at that point.
Lil Gangster. How'd you get that name?
My homie Stone, his name Killer Stone, he was with the D-Boys clique. And we was in juvenile jail. I was young and wild. And he used to be like, man, you Lil Gangsta. And I was like, I was like, oh, I like that. So I had made this little board, this let us paint and stuff. I was like, Mom, my new nickname Lil Gangsta. I was happy he had gave him the name because he was well respected in the juvenile prison. And when he went home first in 93, and he was selling drugs in the project, and I had called home and I was like, man, he was like, man, just take the probation, come on home and hang out with me. So I went on and pled guilty and got out and started hanging out with him. And that's where the name come from, Lil Gangsta at first. About 94, I didn't start spreading my wings out, so I took the Lil off and it was like Gangsta, no more Lil Gangsta, So that's how that came about.
Well, the HotBoys, the actual street crew.
Okay.
What year did that come together?
1994, we all started hanging together, but we knew each other from, like, me and Mosquito, we kind of grew up together. Sterling and all right, let me back up. Remember I told you about the guy that I came around the corner and he was choking my friend to try to take his crack rock? And I shot in the air as well. That's the next day, one of his friends tried to rob my friend again. And my friend shot him in the leg. And Sterling came looking for me and Mosquito. So we had got word that this older guy, he wasn't that older than us, but he had a reputation at the time for robbing and shooting. He had a lot of people were scared of him. And he was looking for us. So one day we coming out the Magnolia Project riding our bikes, heading home, and Sterling coming up the street. And back then we had a little 22 pistol. So Sterling passed us and we stopped and he stopped. And we just was looking at each other. And he was like, who that is? We were like, well, who that is? And he was like, this Sterling was like, oh, this little gangster and this Mosquito. He was like, oh yeah, I heard y'all shot my boy. And was like, yeah, you tried to rob my boy. So we talked, but then we went our separate ways. And in 93, we met back up in jail, and we all actually wound up forming the Hot Boy clique in 1994.
Okay. And the HotBoys was you, Dooney, Sterling, and Mosquito.
Well, it was more than that, but everybody started going to jail, started hanging out other places like Stone, the big homie Stone. He was still in the project, but he was more like laid back, get to work, put it out in the project, and he always was laid back. So you would always see me doing the Sterling Mosquito.
Hey, so the Hot Boys came from actually Hot Boys. That was hood, but also had that shooting mentality. You know what I'm saying? came from that shooter mentality. Alright, I get it now. Alright. So I pat my head.
So that's why it was the four of us, but Stone was still there. You had Disco, you had Hank, Derek, Chill Will, you had a few, Blabber, you had a few good.
Hey, I'm Steven Karst, co-founder of King of Pops. Zero makes it super easy to stay on top of your cash flow. It sometimes answers questions.
With us, but the four of us hung together every day.
Okay, and out of those four, you're the only person that's still alive.
Correct. Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy, bro. He's the only one. That's why y'all should never choose in life, man. Fast money don't mean nothing, bro. Fast money, a lot of people did, you know what I'm saying? They had fast money. I could say half of them probably ain't even doing good right now. Homeless. About fast money is gonna get them a lot, man. It's about generation wealth, bro. It's about having a long term wealth and money. You know what I'm saying? Being rich long time though. Rich and wealthy and rich for a long time. Long terms. You know what I'm saying? Pick up something that can make you money in the long run, in the long term. And have you money for the long term, long run, bro. Enjoy life, bro. You know what I'm saying? We had about 10 people in this group. They all getting money. Hood was probably made like all $1 million. And look at them now. They gone, bro.
How did the other three die?
Okay. The first one to die was Mosquito.
The three. Because it was only 4 of them in the HotBoys quit. You know what I'm saying?
He had went in the Callio project. All right, one of their friends was killed, and they felt that it was Mosquito, Sterling, myself that had to do it. And Mosquito went back there thinking it was all good, and they shot him up like 20-something times. So I got a phone call, and I would talk to them on the payphone. So I was like, is he dead? They was like, man, I don't know. So they'll pass the phone. They kept passing the phone to each other. And I went back there to Cali. When I went back there, he was laying in the driveway on his back, hit up, and clearly he dead. So I was like, oh, they want to play these crackhead games. So from there, that's how the war kicked off between the Magnolia and the Callio project. They had killed him. Then the second person to get killed was Sterling. Him and I were in we had went downtown. We had went to go on Canal Street to Foot Locker. And we had went to Iberville project to holler at one of the guys he knew. And as we stand up talking, this guy walk up, start coming up the street, putting a handkerchief around his face. And this girl was like, y'all better run, that boy got a gun. So me and Sterling look at each other, and I just took off running, and he ran behind me the same way I went, and I heard the shots. I ran through the cut, came back around, and he had shot Sterling in the back of his head 7 times. And, Dooney was killed in 2000. I was in prison, and he had a little turf war, whereas he was in the project, and he didn't want the young boys that was living in the project to sell in a certain courtyard. So the little young boy came out one day, shot, hit him in the side, and he died of internal bleeding.
So you were actually there when Sterling got killed.
Right.
How did that affect you? This is one of your best friends, and you basically just saw him die right in front of you.
Right. I mean, it was shocking because I thought we were untouchable. Like I said, New Orleans have killers all over the city, but I just thought that the 4 of us was like, man, it was an awesome force, And for Sterling, and he older than I am, and to see my big bro laying on his ground. And at the time, he still was like, gasping for air. And I was like, man, and it was turn up season from there.
Okay, and how serious did that war between the Magnolia and Calliope projects really get?
And you know what? That was so serious that a rumor had started, right? the rumor was, and the reason why I could speak on it is because he speak on it in the Fed magazine, Master P. It was a rumor that it started from 15,000 to 30,000 to $100,000 hit out on me. And P speak on this, like I said, in the Fed magazine, where he said we met up at a park and he didn't know me, I didn't know him. And they had a rumor that I had killed his cousin. So the war, it was serious, man. It was so serious. My mother had been shot. My brother got shot up I had an Infinity truck. And I told my brother, I said, man, don't go around the Calio project, man, because right now it's on, you know. And he hard head, went around there, they shot the truck up, hit my brother up a few times. He lived, but that war was real serious, man, you know. But one thing we didn't do, what they're doing today, we didn't do drive-by shootings, hit innocent children, hit innocent people. You know, we kept it, it was like, with us, we didn't do long distance shooting. It was like, when I pull this trigger, I got to get my man, because if I shoot at this guy and miss him, I know I'm the target. You know, so it was like, but you know, there was like 30, 40 deep, and it was just only 3 of us, you know, going to war with them.
Okay, because Master P at one point was in the Bay. That's where he really got his musical career. I mean, I guess he's originally from New Orleans, but he moved back to New Orleans like in 95, I think.
Right. Somewhere up in there. Because that's when he shot that Bowdy movie in 1996.
Right. Exactly. And in 1994, you got shot twice.
Yeah. Right. Well, actually, I got stabbed in the left in my chest in the Superdome in the fair, June. And in July, I got shot up. Yeah, I got shot in July of 94.
Oh, okay. Because there was this article that I found with you talking, and you said, if you look at this picture of me where I'm eating ice cream, you'll see I have a mustache and my eyebrows are gone. That's because I had to dress like a woman to get to somebody.
Right. Man, listen.
What was that? What was that about?
Okay, when Sterling was killed, the project he was killed in, we thought it came from that project. So I was like, man, a lot of people know me. I gotta disguise. But that had been going on in my city for years. There were older killers that had pulled this act before. So you know, I got the wig, the dress, but I wore tennis shoes because I was like, I ain't Wendell Hill. I gotta run. And it was 4 of us, man. It was, these guys are deceased too. It was me, Stone, Disco, his brother Disco, and George Hankin. The 4 of us went back there.
Most of these people deceased. And how many of y'all think that got shot?
The Iberville Project. So me and George, we split up. 2 of us go around the building, and the other 2, Stone and his brothers, went around through the dark cut. And I had the gun under my arm. I had the purse, I had the gun under my arm. So as I'm walking, one of the guys come from around the building. I pulled my gun because it's easy access. I shot, and he jumped back behind the building. My gun jammed. The guy with me, George Hankin, he shoot his gun jam. So now we got to retreat. So I hear 2 more shots around the curve, around the building. Stone and his brother already in the car, they waiting on us. So we make it to the car, and that's when, man, like about 100 shots was let off at us. We almost got killed. We go in there project to kill him, and we almost got killed. So that didn't work out too fine.
Okay, and then in 1996, you got shot twice again?
Right, yeah. What happened was, it was a girl at my project, her name Gangsta, and she had a block party in Shakespeare Park for her son. So the rumor around the city was, hey, Gangsta got a block party in the park, in Shakespeare Park. So back then I used to come out every now and again, because when I come out, I was pulling something off, like I might come out throwing money out the window or doing something, so people always look forward for me to pull up or come around a certain event. So me and this guy with named Lou, we go around the park, to show support, and I parked my car up on a sidewalk, like by this Carter G. Woodson Middle School. And I hung out for a little while. So on my way back I got back in the car, I had a Q45, a green Q45 at this time. And I went to back up. And as I'm backing up, it's a car, because it's a stop sign. It's a car that pulled out, I let the car go. And then the second car that pulled up, it was a white car, it jammed me in. I was like, hey, yo, man, it's a hit. So I jump out the car, the guy jump out his car, and the first shot, he missed me. The second shot, he hit me in my left shoulder. So as I took off running because my car was jammed up on the sidewalk. When I turned the corner, it's a bunch of children right there, because it's a block party. And I had a split second to think. I was like, maybe if I run through these children, he would stop shooting. I was like, no, because if I run through these children and one of these children get hit and get killed, they're going to blame me. And my hood loved me, and that's one thing you don't want the hood to turn against you. So I run out in the open and give him another shot at me, and he hit me under my right armpit, and it came out the middle of my chest. I don't know that I'm hit like this. I felt it, but I don't know where the bullet went at the time. So I'm running up the street, and one of my homies threw the door open. I jump in his car. We speed off, up for red. We turn on Washington Avenue. By the time we get on Washington and Magnolia, we get into a wreck. So one of my brothers opened the door, pulled me. I said, man, if the guys don't kill me, y'all gonna get me killed. They throw me in another car. We get to Charity Hospital. This when people started realizing that one of my brothers was my brother, because back then, when I put up on a set and one of my brothers out there, I never say, like, mama say this, or man, what's up, I always, what's up, dog, give him dap, like he one of the fellas, because I know how people will try to retaliate on your family. So at this time, my brother said I had stopped breathing, so he took a while to call my mother. And when my mother showed up, he was like, Mama, I was scared to call because Terrance stopped breathing. So they was like, well, y'all got the same mother? Guys that we had grew up in the neighborhood with didn't know we had the same mother, because like I say, I've always been in prison. So guys I would never stay at their house, But yeah, that was the time I had got shot in 96.
Well, there was this one time you got shot where you lost a piece of your bladder.
That's in 94. Oh man, that was a interesting moment. That day, early that day.
Dang, how many times you got shot, bro? I see what comes with this life. It happens now too.
Me and Mosquito, we had beepers back then. So we had this thing, we would see who beeper could go off the most. And he had a pocket full of change. So my beeper went off like 5 times straight. He gave me quarters like 4 different times because I had to use the payphone. The 5th time, he was like, man, I have even money. So he didn't want to give me a quarter. So I was kind of upset about it. And then it was like, we had like 3 or 4 cars, and we were trying to decide, did we want to go to Kenner, Louisiana, where some females lived. And I wanted to go out there and hang out, but then some of the fellas wanted to go back in the project. So at the time, I didn't have a car, so I was outvoted. We wound up going back to the project. When we go back to the project, the ice cream truck pulled up, and one of my homegirls asked Mosquito for a quarter. He give it to her. I go off. I start cussing him out real bad, and I was like, man, I asked you for a quarter. You didn't give me a quarter. He's like, man, I gave you. I was like, well, man, she not gonna go to war with you. I'm the one got to go to war with you, so you should have gave me another quarter. And I was kneeling down at the time talking to him. So this pretty female with a nice butt, man, walk up and turn and face me in the street, and she was like, you. I was like, I looked behind me like, who's talking to me? She was like, yeah. I didn't know that there was the same female that I had saw at the club one night, and I was feeling myself this night, feeling good and arrogant and cocky. So I go in the club, I see her, and I was like, I told her friend, I said, hey, tell her I want to F her tonight. And she was shocked because I didn't ask her her name, her phone. I was like, tell her I want to have sex tonight. But back then I used to cuss. So this same female came in my project because her daughter, godmother lived back there. So she reminded me that she was the one I had said I wanted to have sex with that night. So I wound up walking back with her because, well, actually no, she left. She told me where she was at. So at this time, I'm still upset about this quarter. So I walked back in a circle, and my homie Stone, Killer Stone, he in the courtyard. He hadn't passed out weed to the everybody in the courtyard and stuff. And I didn't smoke back then, so I went on home. I didn't want to hang out with nobody because I was really upset because my best friend wouldn't give me a quarter for call the girl back over my beeper. So I go home and one of my brothers was like, hey, I just bought some new bullets because I had a Mac 11. I was like, okay, cool. So after I had like a 36 round clip, and now it's a Sunday, so it's this day is boring. So I was like, oh, the girl around the corner. I got sidetracked that fast. I left my gun on the bed, and I go around the corner. I was acting like I was going to the store because I didn't want to seem like I was thirsty, like I'm chasing a girl. So I walk around the corner and I see her. I was like, oh, what's up? We started talking. Me and this girl, man, we talked like from maybe like 4 in the afternoon, and she was ready to go home. So she was catching the Louisiana bus, and the bus go all the way up Washington Avenue. So we started out on Washington and Willow. I said, let's walk down to Washington Magnolia. We walked down 2 more blocks. I look down the street, I don't see the bus. I say, let's walk down to Washington and Ferret. So now we like 1, 2, 3, we 4 blocks from my house, and my gun is in the house. But in my mind, I'm thinking I'm in my project. Nobody not gonna touch me. Nobody not gonna come back and disrespect me. This was the mind frame I had. So she was like, "Well, if we gonna go to Washington for it, we might as well go to LaSalle in Washington. That way, a bus come that way and a bus come this way. I could catch either or." I had to hung out with this girl. The bus took so long to come, man. It got dark. She finally get on the bus and leave. So now I'm heading back, because I'm on the old side of the project. I live on the new side of the project. As I'm walking back, I see a guy in front of me, and he like, as he walking past this cut, he run like in the street. And I look at him, but I'm like, man, he tripping. So when I get to that same courtyard, there's nothing there. So I see my brother at the red light. I was trying to flag him down, but I wasn't really pressed to talk to him. I was just, trying to speak to him. But the light turned green, he went on past the intersection. So as I'm walking, a guy across the street like, gangsta, gangsta. I look back, man, it's a guy charging me with a hat and a mask on. I mean, not a mask, he got a hat on, and he got a big gun in his hand. He's a handgun, and he's shooting. And I'm like, oh, and I try to run. I was still kind of sore because I had just got stabbed in the fair, so I had staples in my stomach. So I'm trying to run, this guy shooting, and he shot me in my right side first, and I ran across the street, and he shot the ballroom window out, and he shot me in my left buttocks. It traveled from my left buttocks, top buttocks, shot a piece of my bladder, came out my right thigh. I fell. And as I'm on this ground, I'm like, man, you got to get up, because back then they had this thing, when you fall on the ground, you got to empty the clip because they want the coffin closed. And I look up at this guy, he look up at me, I jump up, we look at each other. He took out running, and I ran in the alley. So they got this guy at the door, I was like, hey.
I think this is crazy how you can remember all this. Like, that's crazy how you can remember that. That's how you know it's still in his mind. Like there's some shit that's deeply into him. Like, it's so, like, it's like no violence, like you said, bro.
Hey, man, I just got shot. Can you let me in this house? He was like, man, I ain't crazy. You come back here to kill me. And he was a crackhead. He ran and left me back there. So this older guy, he let me in his house, and Stone pull up, and they brought me to the hospital, and I wound up getting a colostomy bag out of that shooting.
Okay, so basically you have to go to the bathroom through this bag for, I think it was 23 months?
Yeah, man. Yep, a year and 11 months, 23 months, correct. Yeah.
I mean, as you're sitting there, you got staples in your chest, you got a colostomy bag, other shootings along the way. At some point, do you say, man, I need to just get out of here? Like,
No.
I need to move somewhere? No.
No, man. At some point, you got to say, okay, retaliation is a must. I got to start getting the people who shoot me or who doing this dirt to me, and I got a reputation to uphold. So, you know, back then, it wasn't tuck your tail and run. It was like, man, you got to man up, because, you know, you got people on the sideline, and, you know, when you're young, that stuff play a part. You know, people whispering and, oh, man, you know, you're going to let them shoot you, get away with it, man. You got to go find, you know, you got to go back. But the thing about, man, each time You can't count the 1991 shooting. But the 94 and the 96 shooting, each time I got shot, nobody owned up to it. Nobody spoke about it. Nobody said, hey, such and such. So what I would do, everybody I had beef with, I would hit their block or they set, and it was like, I'm gonna get the right one. Because we enemies anyway, so it's time for me to come pay you a visit. But I never heard to this day who shot me, the 94 shooting or the 96 shooting, man. It just, it bothers me sometimes because I was like, every time somebody gets shot, somebody gonna point a finger or say somebody did it. But they never, or whoever the shooter was, he was real smart to be like, I'm not gonna talk my business, because he knew with me still being alive, it was gonna be safe for him in New Orleans.
Well, around that time, you had been arrested for murder 6 times, but all the cases were dropped.
Right.
Okay, so every time the police thought they got you, you ended up walking away.
Man, let me tell you something. In 1994, I was arrested for murder, for homicide. The story went that I tried to rob a guy out of his car, and I told him, hey, come show me how to turn the lights on, and shot him, right? In 1994, my homie Stone, Killer Stone, had a 94 Bravada, he had a 94 Rodeo, he had a 94 Suburban, rental cars. I mean, we were doing good, we were eating good, and he used to take care of me real good. So I felt it offensive for the, say I had tried to rob somebody out of a car. My mother, back then, when you go to jail for murder, you go to magistrate court to see if they're gonna give you a bond. You know, first degree murder, you don't get a bond. Second degree murder, you get a bond. I had this play sister named Tanya. She came to court with my mother. So the homicide man, Tanya, very attractive girl. So he asked her, her name. They exchanged phone numbers. I called home. My mother told me what happened. So I had got upset at first. I was like, so she with the enemies, or she set me up? What's going on? Why she exchanged the number with the law? I called her, so I thought about it. I was like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. Because I knew I was on a bogus charge at this time. So I said, hey, T, I said, I got something I want you to do. She said, what you want me to do, bro? I said, get a tape recorder, put it in your purse. I say, I have some questions I want you to ask this homicide detective. So the homicide detective called. I say, make sure you get him to state his name on the record. So she was like, what's your name? He was like, Detective Bailey. And she said, what's your first name? He's like, don't worry about that. So she said, you know my little brother didn't do that murder. Why you got him in jail, and what do you want from me? His exact words were, yeah, I know your little brother didn't do the murder, but he done so much stuff, I had to get him off the street. He said, his freedom lies in my hand, and I'm gonna let you know what I want from you later. They wound up dropping the murder. When I got out, I used that to my advantage. So I would later go to him, made a copy of it, and let him hear his voice on there. So I would let him, hey, if you don't want me to turn this in, it's certain drug dealers, I need you to pull them up, get them for me, and let me take their drugs and get the money. So, it worked out good for both of us.
So you were actually extorting a homicide detective.
Right, because he did it to me first.
Yeah, I feel you. Wow. Okay, did that tape ever get out?
No. Because because we had became real cool at the time, and he played fair, so everything worked out fine. It never got out.
Okay. Then by 95, Cash Money Records puts out the BGs, True Story, and at that time the BGs was Lil Wayne and BG.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Wayne and BG started coming around?
Yes. BG, that's why he got his name, Baby Gangsta, from me. But
Okay.
Lil Wayne, man, that little young boy was something special. I remember going in a studio, and Wayne had his little fro, because back then, he looked up to Slim. And he had a little camouflage vest on, and it was Wayne and Turk sitting over at one table, and it was Juvenile sitting over at the other table, and BG was like kind of roaming around. And I goes over to Lil Wayne, because he's the youngest one, and I say, let me rap, and he just started rapping. I was like, man, like, where you get this from? How are you able to put this together and rap like this? And his exact words were, I don't know, I'm just talented, I'm just gifted. And I was like, yo, this little youngster is gonna be something special, man. And I remember Slim called me one day and he was like, man, listen to this. He had sent me one of Wayne's songs. And but because back then BG was my favorite rapper. But I was like, yo, he gonna be the next to blow for Cash Money, man. Lil Wayne, this little young boy is serious. Cause for to be so young, his wordplay was just it was just dangerous, man. I was like, man, this little boy is young and he know all this gangster killer. And I understand, you living in a city, you're around all this stuff. He grew up in Holly Grove, it's killers back there, he had all this. But to actually hear a youngster put this stuff on paper like he did, I was shocked, man. I was real shocked. But I still wasn't interested in settling down with Cash Money. No, I still wasn't.
Well, that next year, Cash Money puts out UNLV, Uptown for Life.
All right.
And that was, once again, the biggest project for Cash Money at the time. And that had Drag 'Em Down the River on it, which was
mystical.
Was a Mystical diss.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I interviewed Mystical, as well as, who's the dude from UNLV?
Yafet.
Yeah, right.
Yafet, yeah.
Exactly. So we talked about this whole story and everything, and it almost got violent at certain times, but it was more or less kept on wax.
And I still had a little small beef with Cash Money. Like I remember I seen BG in the Piccadilly. I had just came over to church. I was big too. That's when I was working out real.
I remember Mystical. He's from New Orleans, so he was with Master P,
Real hard. I just came over to church. It was me, my mom, probably baby mama, shit like that, little nephew. And I walked into the Piccadilly and I see BG at the table. Loaded as a motherfucker, dicked out, look. I said, I got his ass now. All that shit you talking, got his ass now. So he seen me coming and he kind of sat up. He stood up there and he said, Mystical. I said, I got your ass. That motherfucker, he unarmed me. He said, nigga, that unpredictable go hard. I couldn't even do nothing. I was like, fuck. All I could say was, nigga, that Chopper City go hard too. and it was over with. He totally changed my mindset, man, for real, with a fucking compliment. Flattery will get you everywhere, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. And to that day, what's up, BG? Come on home, baby. We miss you, my nigga. We miss you, man.
Now, you yourself were somehow involved in that situation.
Correct. Back then, you had Cash Money Records, you had Big Boy Records, and they had a nice team over there at Big Boy Records. So this guy had put up on one of them misdemeanor from Partners in Crime.
And Big Boy Records. Puffy, Diddy.
And I was like, yo, let that go. Me and him talk, back then, because I've always been small, so my approach always been the humble approach, where I would give a person a chance to give them enough rope to hang themselves, put it that way. So every time I approached someone, I was never aggressive. I was always respectful. But I had to talk with them, let them know, because they were very talented record label themselves, and they had some heat coming from their label. So, I put up like, listen, man, because they were from Gerttown and Pigeon Town, and they had killers with them too. So it'd be times where BG liked to roam by himself. Wayne always was babying to make sure he was good. But, Juvie roamed by himself, Turk, Young Wild, and it's the homies, it's the family. So I had to let them know, like, listen, man, y'all got this thing going on. Make sure you keep it in the studio, because, they got family behind that's coming behind them head first, So if something happened to one of them, even if they're getting a car wreck, I'm gonna think it's coming from that way, So we was able to, keep it respectful, and they kept it in the studio.
Okay. And that same year, Master P drops Ice Cream Man, and that was like his first hit.
Right.
How was the effect with Master P? Because you guys were beefing at that point, right?
No, not at that point. Because back then, my project and the Calio project, we were together. We was like trade beef. We were click tight together, and that's when Master P got ready to do that Bout It movie in '96, and I was supposed to be in that movie. But right before I was able to get in that movie, that's when I fell out with the Calio project, so I wasn't able to be in a part of that About It movie, that first movie he shot. But P at the time, no, we wasn't beefing then. You know, it's another thing too. I'm happy you said that because I noticed Baby, Birdman, and P, they both been tap dancing around the question that people ask why No Limit and Cash Money artists never hooked up and do a song. That wasn't gonna happen because of me and T-Dub about the Calio project. Because when we was at war, you got Cash Money over here with me, Blabber, and the Shooters over here, and you had No Limit over there with T-Dub, Wango, KK, you know, guys over there. So how you gonna do a song together and then you gotta go perform this song? So now you got guys that's actually beefing, street beef that is on site when we see each other. That was never gonna happen. So, you know, I like how they tap dance around it, but you got two enemies on both sides. This was never gonna happen.
Well, your dad died that same year, 1996.
Right.
How close were you with your dad? I mean, because here you are getting shot, going in and out of prison, and so forth.
I didn't have a big relationship with my father. I mean, like I said, I was always the loner. Like, I'd be in jail so much. I come home, I respect everybody, hey, how you doing? But it was never like, let's go hang out or go sit down and eat. Never, you know, because I always ran the streets. I always lived with other people. You know, so, you know, I never had a big relationship with my father.
Okay, well, that next year, 1997, Cash Money, their buzz keeps getting bigger. Juvenile dropped Soulja Rag, which I felt like that's when the quality level kind of stepped up. You know what I'm saying? That's when I felt like Cash Money had his first superstar.
No,
you know what I
man,
mean?
you wrong. No,
Nah, you don't agree with that?
No,
Okay.
sir. Juvie did his thing, but BG told the Cash Money. BG was that dude. Now, Juvie outsold him, correct. Juvie was more of a versatile rapper, I would say that. But, man, Doogie, man, Lil Doogie, no. I got to go with Lil Doogie. I got to go with
Okay,
Doogie.
fair enough. And BG dropped It's All On You 1 and 2 that same year.
But you missing, he dropped the Chopper City and the Chopper City first.
Ah, okay.
That was because he had that song that hit. The hit was man, I should get under the guys out the Calio skin with this song, Uptown Thing. He had that verse with here's the deal, gotta keep it real, gotta holler at gangsta, hot boy hard to kill. And when he would get ready to say that part, I would come out on the stage and I knew my enemies were in the audience, and I know they wanted to kill me bad, man. I love that song. When BG played that song, Baby would actually he would look for me because he knew I'm about to come out of nowhere. He would try to block me from getting on that stage. And it wasn't going to happen, man. I had to have my moment, man. Man, yo, but like I say, Juvie, and that's me and Juvie grew up together too. But BG told the Cash Money for a while, man. It was BG.
Okay, I mean, you know better than I do. You know, I'm just talking from the outside.
Right, yeah, that's cool.
Right, and you know, a lot of the world got introduced to Cash Money later on, you know, after the Universal deal. So this is sort of like the
Underground.
New Orleans Cash Money, underground, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, you know better than I do. But that same year, the HotBoys rap group actually came out with Get It How You Live. So explain to me how the HotBoys went from the name of your street crew to the name of a rap group.
Okay, we were before the group came together. We were on a bus. Baby, back then we used to get these little raggedy buses. Bus breakdown on us before we get to the show and everything, man. So one time the bus broke down on us downtown. And you know, we got off the bus, Baby called somebody to get the bus fixed or whatever. So we were talking, he was like, man, I got this little group I'm trying to put together and I need a name. So I was like, brainstorm, right? I was like, so like 30 minutes had passed and we coming up with different names. I was like, how many of them it is? He was like, man, it's 4. You know, I'm gonna put Wayne, Turk, Juvenile, and BG together. So I was like, 4 of them. I said, man, name them the HotBoys. He was like, HotBoys. He looked at me, right? And he was like, okay, but what's gonna be the concept behind it? I say, they look good, they dress nice, jury game, they got cars, girls looking for them, enemies looking for them, the police looking for them. they hot boys because it came about. And you know what? I got to give some credit to Rashid out the Magnolia, him and Jasades. Well, his name Mr. Marcello now, because a lot of girls were knew that a lot of girls were crazy about them back then. And when we would pull up in the hood, in the courtyard, guys would always be like, "Oh man, they hot, and they'll walk off. And somebody tell you, man, they hot. That mean either the police ride around looking for you, or either the enemy's looking for you, as a hit out on you, or some girls might come through looking for you. It's just somebody might, if a person walk off from you, if you just hanging in the courtyard or on the porch or on the block or the neighborhood or stand on the corner, and that one particular or two, three particular people walk up and the person just walk off, something not right with them people right there. So it's like somebody trying to kill him or, you don't want to be around. So when we would pull up, a lot of people would walk off and move out, be like, man,
All right, so now we get to the point of what the word hot boy means. All right.
they hot, man. So one of my homies, Fu, had told me one day, he said, man, the girl be calling y'all the hot boy. They call y'all hot. So I was like, yeah. So me doing the story of mosquito, we're in the house talking, and we were trying to come up with a little street name for ourselves. We were like, man, what about the bad boys? Like, nah, they got a group in New York, record label called that. So I was like, man, because my homie had just told me about the hot boys that day. And I was like, well, we gonna be calling ourselves the hot boys. And when I went to jail, I wound up getting I didn't know the value of this handkerchief I had. It was a white handkerchief with black and gold on it. So it was this Latino in the jail doing tattoos. So I was like, hey man, I want you to do a hot chili pepper on my arm. I said, how much are you gonna charge? He was like, give me that handkerchief right there. I was like, is this? Yeah. I would later find out that that's a Latin king. That's their color, the black and gold. So I got the hot chili pepper. Then he put it on backwards. So when he put it on my arm and I look, I said, no, don't worry about it. Leave it like that. I said, because this gonna show that this was the first chili pepper. It's on backwards. I'm gonna take this and run with it. And when I got out jail in 96, like I said, back to me and baby, we ride on the bus. And when I gave him that name, they all went, some of them got the chili pepper, some of them got the name tattoo, hot boy on them. And man, out of all the dirt and wrong I've done in my life, it made me feel good. One day right before I got out of prison, it was this little young boy, 25 years old, from Atlanta. And we was getting ready to go to Chow to eat. And I look on the back of his neck and I see hot boy tattooed on the back of his neck. And I was like, wow, I made an impact on the world, But
You made an impact on the world, man. But you was doing some bad stuff that you didn't probably even really want to do, but you had to do. You know what I'm saying?
Birdman, I need to get paid for that hot boys, man.
Well, when you talk about being on that raggedy bus when Cash Money were doing concerts, you said that while the Cash Money crew were entertaining people, I was hooking up heroin deals and I had 2 guns and a bulletproof vest.
That's how, and that's how the rumor got started about when I invested in Cash Money. What happened was we would let the Connect know, like I would find out from Baby what city we going to, what state we gonna ride in. And I would let my people know so they would meet us. And we was at this little raggedy motel one day. It wasn't that raggedy, but I understood. Well, now I understand. I look back on it. We had Lil Wayne, Turk, Juvenile, BG. We all in these rooms, and sometimes we would share rooms. So Baby would, the motel, you could look out the window and see in the parking lot and stuff. So he saw these 3 little foreigners coming to the room. And, he come out, bust off in the room. We got the money on the bed. We got the heroin out. So he like, oh, Slim, no, I'm letting Slim know, he screamed on us. So I like, give him 10 grand and keep his mouth closed. And from there, that's how it started with me and him with the money. And so I would leave like 100 grand on the bus, give him the bag of money, hold for me. Maybe 2-3 weeks later, man, what the money I gave you? Oh man, I spent that, man. I did this and this, and I like, all right, man, you owe me now, man. So that's when it started. Like, okay, I invested in cash money, and that's how that rumor had started.
Okay, so you never invested $100,000 in cash money.
No, it's just that I would give him money for my drugs. So like when we go out of town, I used to use their bus because, like I said, I was never really interested in the music. Like when my phone was tapped, he would call me like, "Hey man, come on, let's go on tour. Let's go with MCA or RCA, whatever that stuff is." And I was like, "Man, I'm getting this heroin money," and I would hang up on him, man. One time I said, "Man," and all this is in court records. I got it in my transcripts where he would literally try to get me to come out the project or stop selling drugs to go on tour with them. But I was making heroin money. You know, I was getting more money than the tour at the time. You know, because they were local. So I was like, "Nah, man, I'm not doing that." You know, and hang up the phone. But I would leave drug money because, like I say, if I use their bus and we was getting so much money to it, I would leave that money with him and he'll hold this and keep it pushing, you know. And when I come back, sometimes it's not there. So now I'm like, I'm seeing the potential with cash money doing something. Like, all right, now I didn't invest in cash money. Boy, I own some of this here. And you know, back then, I got you, yo, that's cool. It wasn't no contracts back then. You know, it was word of mouth. You know, so and later on, I wound up getting screwed.
Well, by that time, how big was your drug operation? I mean, were you really trying to focus on building a big drug operation, or were you out there basically shooting and enforcing and so forth?
Both, you know, because like I say, the heroin money, man, is like you can make $40,000-$50,000 a day selling heroin. You know, so me talking about a record label, talking about going on a regular bus and driving in 4 or 5 hours, man, I don't have time for that. You know, I'm in the project, young, Q45, jewelry, pocket full of money, girls. I got my own concert, you know? So I didn't see nothing in that. I wasn't with that.
Well, during that time, like, how big of a load were you getting at your height? Like, were you getting kilos and kilos and kilos, or was it just take a brick, flip it, get another brick, flip it?
At the most, I had got like 5 kilos of heroin.
Okay, so it never got to the point of 50 or 100 bricks or anything else like that.
No, man, no, never. Let me say this. It never got to that point, but it was getting to that point because the people who I was dealing with was from New York. And they had warehouses of the stuff, but I had met these people through one of my co-defendants. And I had needed some heroin one time, and I was like, "Man, what them people that you got that drug from?" He was like, "They're in New York." I said, "Man, I'm on my way out there. Tell them I'm coming." And I didn't get no invite or nothing. I just showed up at them people's doorstep. I'm talking about literally went to New York without being invited. Me and my co-defendant Blabber, we flew out, John F. Kennedy Airport. Never forget, went to the Howard Johnson Hotel. We got in a cab, went to Brooklyn, and met them in the back of a restaurant.
You combed through every last piece of evidence. You made...
It was 3 of them.
So this was where we gonna end it off for this video. Part 1, part 2, release. Next, let's get it.